I know there are so many readers who absolutely love this book, but unfortunately, I am not among them. Hi guys, my name is Hina, and today I'm here with July month end reading wrap up. I think July was one of the worst months for me, reading wise, because I managed to read only 4 books. And although I read a couple of books for the Reading Bud, I generally don't include the books that I read for the Reading Bud because they're sponsored and compensated for books. So even though I read a couple of those, July was not a good reading month for me. And so I managed to read 4 books, and 2 of them were not even that great. I am hoping that I'll be able to catch up in the month of August because I have some really amazing titles lined up. Today's video is sponsored by a book that hooked me from the very first page. Unborn by Eva Barber. Imagine this, a shadow realm where the unborn linger, waiting for the chance at life, and a young girl caught between that world and ours. Unborn is a dark, insanely atmospheric science fiction thriller that blends mythology, speculative fiction, and an upheaval of emotions. It's got everything. It has haunting imagery, high stakes, and a story that makes you question destiny itself. If you are into books that feel both cinematic as well as thought provoking, Unborn by Eva Barber is definitely one you want to read. You can check it out through the link in the description box below. And trust me, this is one story that you will not forget anytime soon. Happy reading. The first book that I read in the month of July, The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. My God, this was nothing like I had imagined it would be. Even after reading the blurb, I kind of had the impression that this book was mostly about paranormal activity, reformatory, but this book was so much more than that. This book is exceptionally heavy on racial discrimination, and the entire plot of the novel revolves around racial discrimination. Now, author Tananarive Due beautifully and brilliantly ties in the entire story. This book is set in the 1950 Jim Crow Florida, where racial cruelty is the worst, and it is based on the dark reality of Dozier School for Boys, which makes this book even more terrific. The author brilliantly weaves the entire story together, which is equal parts historical and supernatural. You won't just be reading about the racial cruelty the people were subjected to in those days, but you will literally be living it day by day, scene by scene. And that, I think, is something to know before you dive into this book. The book is about Robbie, our 12-year-old protagonist, who is gifted with a sight and he can see the dead. And the way the author presented his gift in the book and the way then it was used, the people at the school for their own cruel motives, it was really heartbreaking. And the author cleverly used the protagonist's gift to see the dead to show us the cruelty in the past, as well as the racial cruelty that goes on in the present. So overall, this book was exceptionally heavy as Robbie tries to make his way through the reformatory, trying to live day by day in a world that is clearly not meant for him. The author's prose is quite literary without being indulgent, and that is the best kind of literary prose that you can ever come across in a book that is not strictly literary fiction and talks about other themes except for the usual literary themes. What was really terrifying in the book was the systemic abuse that was made to feel quite normal to the people who were being abused. The Reformatory is a really haunting tale of institutional violence and racial cruelty. So if you want your supernatural to be more than surface level scary, then do give this book a read. My rating for this book is 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. Now, before we get into this review, let me just be very clear. Stephen King is one of my absolute all-time favorite horror writer, horror being the keyword. And even though this book was a work of speculative fiction, trying to blend in a bit of science fiction, I did not like this book. I know there are so many readers who absolutely love this book, but unfortunately, I am not among them. And I'll tell you about it in just a moment. Let me be honest. 11/22/63 is a total masterclass in character development, research, and concept. But it tested my patience. Stephen King's premise in this book is exceptionally compelling. A man steps into a portal into 1958 and is determined to stop the assassination of JFK. And as always, Stephen King brings so much depth and detail into this book that the 50s and the 60s practically feel like a black and white film running in your head. Stephen King is amazing when it comes to detailing. He has rendered 60s in America with such amazing texture that it feels like a movie is running in your head, a black and white movie is running in your head. But, and there's a very big but here, I felt that the book dragged, and it dragged so bad that it felt like I was stuck in an endless loop of exposition. I mean, usually have such a huge problem when the pacing is off, but when it comes to Stephen King's books, the pacing can slow down to a snail's pace and it can drag on forever. And this book had exactly that issue. At nearly 30 hours of audiobook, it kind of felt like a slow burn that totally forgot that the match was burning. I mean, when Stephen King starts to wander, he wanders like no one else. And then he'll go to places that the reader will totally lose interest in and won't even care about. So even though I was really intrigued by the concept and I've heard so much praise for the book, the moment Stephen King started wandering and meandering through the domestic lives of the people in the 50s and the 60s, and especially the main character, and then there were these Lindy Hop dance practices, grocery shopping, little quibbles in high school, and then the small town dramas. I cursed myself for having started this book because it really tested my patience. In the 30 hours of audiobook, I found myself often checking out whenever King wandered off from the main plot. And that happened, I think, more than 100 times. So to say that the pacing was off in this book is completely an understatement, because the pacing totally left the building, and Stephen King can sometimes get into these patches where he totally forgets what the main plot is, where he just completely runs off with some different ideas and comes back to them only after 100, 200 or 300 pages. Yes, so it was one of those Stephen King books. If you are a Stephen King writer, then you'll know what I mean. If you're not, then I hope that you do not find it out. Now, coming to the characterization, even though the characterization was exceptionally detailed and rich, I still struggled to connect with Jake Epping. I have no idea why. Maybe it was because I was so pissed because of the pacing that I kind of started finding the main character, who was very well developed, quite irritating. So I started to get irritated by whatever he was doing, because he was continuously, because of King, meandering to other ideas and plot lines and subplots, and because of that I was not able to connect to him at all, and that was a very big problem for me. So even though the story was good and the concept was brilliant, I did not like the Another problem was that I honestly couldn't get invested in the protagonist's mission of saving JFK as well, because it never really felt urgent. I mean, he comes to the past in 1958, if I'm not wrong, in 1958, and JFK was killed in 63, so he had a lot of time to get to the point where JFK was murdered, and so we have to go through the painful details of his life, not once, almost thrice. That's a bit of a spoiler, but you know what? Just get into this book only if you are a dedicated King fan like me, who's ready to get through a bad King book as well. By the time we reach Dallas, the plot tightens a little bit, but for me it came a little too late. A lot of good questions were explored in this book. For example, should we change history? What will happen if we do? And what would be the cost of meddling? Now, even though these questions are quite philosophical and good, they are not really explored completely in this book. They're just kind of an afterthought that the protagonist thinks about. So I would just say that unless you are deeply invested in American history or love exceptionally slow burn novels, I wouldn't recommend this book. As a non-American reader, I found it to be exceptionally long and weighed down by the cultural context. And because of that, I couldn't fully connect to any of the characters. And then now, when I look back, it kind of completely feels like a waste to me. I literally wasted 30 hours of my life listening to this book. So my rating for this, Stephen King's 11/22/63, is 2.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents by Lindsay G. Gibson. How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. Enough said. Okay, so this book is a 5 out of 5 star read for me because it taught me a lot. In fact, I have a lot of annotations in this book. I have, I think, completely ruined this book by writing in it, highlighting in it, and marking it, annotating it. But this book is a beautiful book that I think every person should read, because I think we all have at least one emotionally mature parent while growing up. And even if that is not the case, there are chances that you might have known at least one immature person who was a part of your inner circle. Now, inner circle, again, is a philosophical concept, which I would not go into right now. But if you want to know more about inner circle, you can just drop a comment and I'll let you know. This book is basically a guide for people whose parents were emotionally immature, and this book helps in understanding why we are the way we are and how we can work on ourselves in order to not end up being emotionally immature ourselves. And that, I think, is why this book is crucial, because how else are we going to learn? So we need to know what happened, how it happened, and how it affected everyone else and how it affected us as children. And it will also give you answers as to why we do certain things, why we think in a certain way, and then use all that knowledge to not be what we don't want to be. This book is a complete 5 out of 5 stars for me, and I would recommend it to all Indian readers. The next book that I read is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, the second book in the Mistborn series. And this book is quite big. I could have read another 3 to 4 books instead of this one, but I chose to read this one, and it was a bad decision because this book did not turn out to be as good as the first one, and now I'm totally rethinking about reading the next book in this trilogy. So coming back to this book was kind of horrible. The pacing was completely off. The tension was completely missing, and the characters were horrible. Sorry, Brandon Sanderson. I really love your works, but this one did not do it for me. I have absolutely no idea why they did not cut down this book into half because there was literally nothing of importance going on in this book. Actually, I think after the death of Kelsier in the first book, there was literally nothing left in the second one. I was actually hoping, when I started reading this book, I was actually hoping that at some point Kelsier would magically reappear in this book and save the plot. But you know what? He did not, and so the book miserably failed, at least for me. I think I actually wasted my time completing this one, and I'm not feeling too good about starting the next book in the series because it is also this long, almost 750 pages or something. So I think I might be skipping that one and maybe starting a new series altogether by Brandon Sanderson, because I wanted to read his books this year. So my rating for this book would absolutely be 2 out of 5 stars. And even though I had hoped that in this book some of the issues that I had in the first book would be rectified, I actually now think that the first book was much better than this book, and now I'm totally done with the series, so I won't be reading the next book in the series. So that's it for this month. In July, as I said, I only read 4 books, and 2 out of those 4 books were not that great, and they were incredibly long. So I kind of wasted my time with 2 not so good books, but you know what? It happens. So I'll see you all in my next video. Take care. If you like my videos, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel and do press the bell icon so that you can be notified each and every single time I post a video. If you have someone who likes reading books or would like to get into the habit of reading books, then do share this video with them. They might just be inspired to read another book. What about you? What are you reading? Have you ever read a book that made you feel like you totally wasted your time reading that book? If so, please answer in the comments so that I'll at least feel good about myself having wasted so much time on 2 bad books. I'll see you all in my next video. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye-bye.